The story begins with the witch Lichesia, queen of the underworld, the most enchanting and deadly bloom. Wherever she walked, a seductive fragrance trailed behind her, and her crimson eyes gleamed like blood-stained roses. There was a reason she was called a witch. Her cruelty knew no bounds. Her will was as sharp and unforgiving as a rose's thorn. Anything she despised was erased without hesitation. In the underworld, people found her troublesome, yet they had no choice but to worship her beauty and strength. Lichesia was always the eye of every storm, the flame that drew all gazes, until the day she vanished without a trace. Her sudden disappearance ignited a storm of rumors. Some said she had been captured by an inquisitor and imprisoned beneath the holy sea. Others claimed she had been devoured by the man-eating flower she raised. Theories spread like wildfire, but the truth remained hidden from all. Even if they knew the truth, they wouldn't have believed it, because even Lichesia herself couldn't believe it. Suddenly, a little girl is seen, and she says, "No, I didn't think it'd be this bad." The world's most beautiful woman, a legendary, infamous villainess who lived for her own vanity, always at the center of every scandal and incident. Then she shouted loudly, "What in the world is this? I've become a 5-year-old child?" 1 month ago, Lichesia asked. "What?" "The Count Basillian household is secretly adopting a child," someone replied. "Yes, I'm sure of it. The head of the Basillian family is personally concealing his identity and visiting orphanages one by one. He was Hadda, a dog-beast man, and Lichesia's subordinate and informant," Hadda said. "So here's the thing. I've come up with a genius plan," Lichesia asked. "What is it?" Hadda smiled and replied. "You pose as the director of an orphanage and lure the Count in," Lichesia says. "No. Even if I manage to get close to him that way, I won't get the information I'm after." Then Hadda asked, "Then what should we do?" Lichesia replied, "I'll transform into a child myself and get adopted into the Count's family." Hearing this, Hadda was shocked and said, "What? That's way too dangerous, Lord Lichesia." Lichesia added, "What? It's not like I haven't taken risks before, right? The Basillian family's servants are known for their deep loyalty and tight lips. That's why it's better for me to go personally. It's not like I can't do it, right? I finally found a lead on the bastards who ruined my life. There's only one reason. I'm putting everything on the line. To get revenge on those who shattered my happiness. My mother was a fairy driven mad by her own power, and died the moment I was born. I inherited a twisted, unstable magic from her, and the fairy realm cast me out the instant I took my first breath. It wasn't until later that I discovered the truth." Then she tells that 5 years ago, on my 15th birthday, the director brought the cake and said, "Lichesia, happy birthday." Until that day, I hadn't even known I was a fairy. I was surprised to see the cake. Then I asked, "The orphanage barely gets by. How did you even afford this cake?" Hearing this, director smiled and replied, "Why are you worrying about things like that? You're such a silly girl. I was just living happy days in the orphanage." Director said, "Thank you so much for being born, for coming to us, Lichesia." I says, "Director, I had no parents, but I wasn't lonely. With the director's kindness and my friends by my side, I was content. But then, everything changed the day my fairy powers awakened. That day, my powers suddenly appeared, and the director became worried. The hunters found out about it. They saw everything from outside. One of the hunters said, 'Found her. Looks like that info was true.' The other said, 'A freshly awakened fairy fetches a high price.' First asked, 'Well then, shall we begin the hunt?' Then they set the orphanage on fire. In the human world, fairies and magical beings were treated as commodities. Hunters who coveted that power attacked the orphanage. Everyone was slaughtered, except me. Then I started thinking, it's all my fault. Everyone died because of me. If only I weren't a fairy. That's how I lost everything. Life on the run from hunters was nothing but torment. There wasn't a single place that would take me in. Not one soul I could trust. The only thing I needed to survive was power. In the end, the path I chose was revenge. I used the power of fairies to get revenge. Then I searched for the hunters. One day, one of them was in front of me. He said, 'That's all I know about fairy hunters. I told you everything, please spare me.' I attacked her and said, 'If you've spilled everything you know, then get lost.' Once I fully mastered my powers, I began hunting for the real culprit behind the ruin of my life. The fairy hunters were just pawns. Someone was pulling the strings from the shadows. I won't forgive a single one of them. That's how I chose to become a villainess. After years of tracking, I discovered my mother went mad after being subjected to fairy experiments, and I inherited a power unlike ordinary fairies, and there were rumors that one of the 3 great noble houses of the fallen empire had conducted cruel experiments on fairies. Then she began to think, I couldn't recklessly target a noble, so I was looking for a way, and then an opportunity finally come to me. As expected, it's the Basillian family. The Basillian house is one of the 3 great nobles of the fallen empire, and due to scarce information, they are considered the most secretive family. Despite being a high-ranking noble house, none of their family members, including the Basillian count whose face is not even known, they never make public appearances, and a few years ago, the countess passed away. It is only known that out of his 3 sons, the successor has already been chosen. Because they are such a secretive family, they have become the most suspicious target. And now, despite having 3 sons, he is looking to adopt a child? After a while, she said, not from another noble house, but from an orphanage? Something smells fishy. They might be adopting a child to experiment. Hadda speaks. It's too dangerous. I'm against it, Lord Lichesia. There is barely any known information about them. Who knows what dangers might be hidden? She added. Hadda, you haven't forgotten your promise from back then, have you? Hadda says. All right. I'll make a potion to turn you into a child, she said. Make sure it's about 10 years old. If I become too young, it'll be hard to gather information. Then Count is definitely visiting the orphanage himself, right? Hadda replied. Yes, that's for sure. And so, infiltrating the Basillian family seemed like a solid plan. After a daze, she became a little girl and she went to an orphanage. She was sitting in a room, lost in thought. This is driving me crazy. She was Chesha, alias, 5 years old. Did that damn potion backfire? Forget turning 10. I ended up a toddler who can't even talk properly. On top of that, it's already been a month since I came to this orphanage, and Count Basillian hasn't even shown his face. But above all, I can't stand another day in this dump. The orphanage I grew up in was clean, and they actually cared about feeding us properly. But here, they are obsessed with money and don't care about the kids. And these brats are so annoying. At that moment, she shouted loudly. It's already been a whole month. When is that bastard finally going to show up? Suddenly, Child shouted. Hey, come out quick. There's a noble outside. And a huge, super fancy carriage too. Hearing this, she think, a noble. Could it be? Could it be? When she saw it, she started thinking again. That's it. A fine-bred horse. A luxurious carriage. Elegant attendants. Then that man must be the head of the Basillian family. Count Basillian. I'm sure. As soon as he stepped out of the carriage, he speaks. I'm planning to adopt a child. Seeing this, she began to think. That person is definitely one of the 3 great nobles of the fallen empire. Count Basillian, Madam Director said. Oh, of course. Please come inside and have some tea. She think. The wait was worth it. He looks strict. Count Basillian says. No, it's a waste of time. Let's watch from here. Hearing this, she began to think. Oh, finally. I have to catch the Count's attention somehow. If you're just going to stand there shaking, then move aside. He already looks impatient. At this rate, I won't even get a chance to be seen. At that moment, Count Basillian turned back and said, It seems there is no child for me to take. I'll be going now. Madam Director speaks. What? Please wait a moment. At that moment, suddenly she shouted. Wait. Me? Then she think. No, he can't just leave like that. She shouted loudly. Take me with you. She stepped forward and began to think again. I've been waiting for a whole month. Count Basillian looked at this closely and asked, Why should I take you? This is the bread she brought just for this moment. Count picked up the bread. She asked, Come on, can't you tell just by looking? Then she replied, Because I'm adorable. At that moment, she lost in thought. This is the only way for me to be chosen. The Count deliberately exuded a murderous aura. He's probably looking for a child who can endure at least this much. In other words, the Count needs a fearless brat. What do you think? Isn't this enough for you to take me? After a while, Count smiled and asked, You. Then he knelt down on his knees and asked, What's your name? She replied, Cheshire. My name is Cheshire. Count Kieran asked. Does she resemble them? Hearing this, Cheshire thought. What is he talking about? At that moment, Count Kieran said, All right, I'll take this child. Then Count Kieran picked her up and added, From today on, I'm your dad, Cheshire. Seeing this, Cheshire began to think, What? His mood is completely different from before? Nishi replied, Yes, Dad. This is going well, right? They sat in the carriage, and the carriage started moving. All the children were scared and started speaking. Please return safely. Cheshire was sitting in Kieran's lap, thinking, This is uncomfortable, sitting on someone's lap. Then she moved a little, and Kieran said, You're squirming. You're still not used to having a dad, are you, Cheshire? Cheshire replied, No. At that moment Kieran speaks, So, I've prepared something for you, Cheshire. Hearing this, she lost in thought. What is it? He didn't seem like this delicate type. Kieran said, Here, a gift. Seeing this, she was shocked and thought, This is a mana suppressor? Right, there's no way he just accept this so easily. He wants to check whether I've really turned into a child. But since I drank Hotta's potion, there's no way I'll be found out. The power of beast men, like that of other mythical beings, is different from mana. So, at that moment, she smiled and said, Thank you. It's so pretty. But Cheshire is a bit heavy. Then she began to think again. I'll use this against him. How does it feel to be the kind of scumbag who puts a suppressor on an innocent child? Kieran smiled and says, Oops, this isn't right. Daddy got the wrong gift. I'll give you a better bracelet later. Then she took a long breath and thought, Phew, I passed the first test for now. Kieran said, Cheshire, if there's anything you want, just let me know anytime. She asked, Something I want? Kieran replied, Yes, Daddy will grant all your wishes. But in return, Daddy has a request for you too. Just one thing. You just have to grant Daddy one single wish. Sounds easy, right? Hearing this, she lost in thought. What is this ominous feeling? There's definitely a purpose behind this man adopting me. As expected, the ones who experimented on fairies, were they the Basillian Count's family? As soon as the carriage stopped, the knights appeared and said, Excuse me, we will be conducting a brief inspection. Seeing them, Cheshire began to think again. Holy Knights? Why an inspection all of a sudden? Kieran asked. Is something wrong? The Holy Knights replied. Well, we are searching for the fugitive Lichesia. Hearing this, she started to think. Me? Well, I have been in hiding for a month now. I guess it makes sense, considering all the trouble I've caused. But isn't inspecting civilians a bit much? Kieran speaks. Lichesia, now that I think about it, she has been quiet lately. Hearing this, she think again. Kieran knows who I am? He even seems to be tracking my movements. The underworld is a place where those abandoned by society gather. But why would Kieran be interested in someone like me from the underworld? Then Knight asked. Then, excuse me, but may I ask for identification? Kieran replied. I don't want to. The Knight says. We cannot let you pass without verifying your identity. Please step out of the carriage. At that moment, Kieran used magic and said, That's a problem for me. I still want to keep the fact that I adopted a daughter a secret. So, everyone, I'd like you to forget about it. Cheshire think. This feeling of mana. The Holy Knights replied. Yes, understood. Cheshire began to think. This is dark magic? Dark magic is strictly forbidden even in the Empire. But for Basillian, one of the great nobles, to be a dark mage. What kind of situation is this? Then he said, I must have shown you something unpleasant. I'm sorry, Cheshire. If they hadn't been so bothersome, I would have just let it slide. If they hadn't been so bothersome, I would have just let it slide. Since it's come to this, let's move quickly. Then he snapped his fingers and they were transported to another place. Seeing this, she lost in thought. The location changed in an instant. This must be dark magic as well. Since I was discovered anyway, I guess there's nothing left to hide. That means, this place is the Basillian estate. At top moment, Count Kieran said, Welcome to the Castle of the Serpent, my daughter. On the other side, deep within the jungle, a man was running desperately through the dense forest. Suddenly, he fell to the ground, and the branches wrapped themselves around him. A man approached him, when he saw him, and said, You, an Inquisitor. Hylon, Inquisitor of the Holy Empire of Hildred. Hylon said, Now that you've come into contact with forbidden power, you must have been prepared for this. The knights came and says, Lord Hylon? Hylon asked. What about this witch? One of them stepped forward and replied. Not yet. We're conducting inspections, but no information is coming through at all. Hylon speaks. So, don't die carelessly. Then he thought. Just where have you disappeared to? At that moment, in Lichesia, Kieran said. Daddy will put you to bed again today, Chesha replied. Yes. Then she think. This is driving me crazy. It's already been a week since I entered the Count's household. But why won't Kieran let go of me? At that moment, she recalls that Kieran says, Come on, Chesha. Let's go to the office with Daddy. I want to get out of this body as soon as possible. But because of this kid, I haven't been able to investigate or do anything. At this rate, he might start suspecting my true identity. Then she recalls that again I said that. You are my prey. Kieran speaks. Amusing, isn't it, Cheshire? She think again. Even so, one thing's for sure, he's hiding something. Kieran is a dark mage. On a continent where the church holds massive influence, dark magic is strictly forbidden by the Holy Empire of Hildred. The Fallen Empire is also heavily under the Holy Empire's control. Anyone caught using unholy powers is executed on the spot. Kieran isn't just any dark mage. He's top tier, even capable of mind control. With his life on the line, there's no way an ordinary person would mess with dark magic. I need to figure out what he's really up to. At that moment, Kieran smiled and asked, Can't sleep? Want me to sing you a lullaby? Hearing this, she think again. Just cut the act and show your true colors already. What's with this whole father figure routine? Kieran begins singing. Hearing this, she start thinking. He's actually singing? That's disturbing as hell. If you're gonna sing, at least try to be decent at it. You're completely tone deaf, honestly. If only this were my mom's lullaby instead. I barely remember anything from before I was sent to the orphanage. But my mom's lullaby, that memory still lingers, faint but clear. And there's no way in hell it sounded anything like this train wreck of a song. Why do my eyes feel so heavy? After a while, Kieran says, Sleep well, Cheshire? Took a long breath and continued thinking. When did I even doze off? Damn it. Ever since I got stuck in this kid's body, my stamina's been garbage. Kieran speaks. Well, this is perfect timing. There's something interesting outside. Take a look. Your brothers are back. Seeing this, she thought. Those guys, they're Basillian's 3 brothers? There's barely any information on them. All I know is the eldest just turned 13, and the twins under him are 11. After a while, he said, Well then, shall we get to work, Cheshire? She thought. Why the hell does he keep dragging me along for work? I need some alone time. Then they went to the office. He said, Just sit here for a bit. Then he drew his sword and speaks. Daddy's got to step out for a bit today. You can hold down the fort on your own, right, Cheshire? Hearing this, she smiled and said, Yes. Then she think, Finally, I'm alone. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Kieran said, Come in. Welcome back, Basillian. Basillian, eldest son of the Basillian Count family. Basillian speaks. Nothing out of the ordinary? It's about time you paid a visit to the Black Forest. Kieran added. Thought so. I was planning on it anyway. At that moment, she began to think, What's with that guy? Why is he glaring at me like that? And the Black Forest? The Black Forest is a cursed place, so dense that not even sunlight breaks through. Even at noon, rumor has it monsters lurk there. Strange things happen so often that barely anyone dares enter. Even Serpent's Castle sits right in the middle of it, adding to the Basillian family's air of mystery. So why the hell is Kieran heading there? After a while, Basillian speaks. All right, I'll be off. Kieran asked. You look alike, don't you? Basillian replied. If you've lost your mind, please do so quietly on your own, and quit dragging innocent people into your madness. Hearing this, she began to think, Oh my. Talk about tense. Are they really father and son? Kieran smiled and speaks. Surprised? My eldest brother's always been a bit cold, she says. I'm totally fine. Kieran stepped forward and says, All right then. I'll be heading out too. I'll be back by morning at the latest, so don't wait up, she said. Okay. But, Dad, I've got a question. Who do I look like? Then she think again. That was way too suspicious. This is the second time Kieran's told me I look like someone. Then she recalls that Kieran said, You do. Even back at the orphanage, she recalls that Kieran words. You look alike, don't you? And again, right in front of Basillian. Then she recalls that again Kieran said, Lichesia, huh? Now that I think about it, things have been oddly quiet. And if he actually mentioned me by name, then maybe me and Elf being adopted wasn't just some coincidence. What are you really after, Kieran? This section deepens the mystery around Kieran, introduces the Holy Empire's hunt for dark magic, brings in Basillian, and strongly hints that Chesha's adoption was part of a much larger plan. After a while, she smiled and asked, Who do I look like? He replied, That, I'll tell you when I get back. But you have to wait patiently for me, okay? Alright, see you later, she said. Okay. Then she thought, there's definitely something going on. Do they really think I wouldn't notice? And what? Stay put and behave? Not a chance. At that moment she speaks. Today is the day I dig up everything about the Count's family. Once I've gathered all the information, it's goodbye to this place. Suddenly he looked back and thought. A presence. A man in a black mask placed his hand over his mouth and says, You'd better come quietly. Make a single noise, and you'll die on the spot. He was a kidnapper. She think. Why now of all times? When the kidnapper brought him outside, another one was waiting and said, You're back sooner than I expected. First kidnapper says, Damn it, let's hurry and get out of this creepy place. Second kidnapper added, You secured the target, right? First kidnapper, Yeah. Still don't get why Basillian ordered us to kidnap this brat. We searched every damn place to find them. Thought it'd be something big, but just ordinary? They threw her into the carriage. Hearing all this, she began to think, they don't even seem like a big deal. Should I just kill them? But don't they look kind of familiar? Yeah, feels like I've seen them somewhere before, kidnapper said. Red eyes and blonde hair. Ugh, it's right on the. Second kidnapper says, That damn Lichesia. Then she lost in thought. What the hell, he's sharper than I thought. Guess I've caused enough trouble digging around that even in this form, they still recognize me. I really can't let them live. Goodbye. Then he raised his hand and began to use magic. Then suddenly, a voice was heard. Hey you guys. A boy stepped forward and asked, What are you doing? I don't recognize you. He was Basillian, third son of the Basillian family. First kidnapper said, Young master, we were just delivering flowers. Second kidnapper replied, Yes, we were just about to leave, actually. Seeing him, she began to think, That kid, he's the third son of this house? First kidnapper asked, Is there something you need? That place, Ishul said. Keep your mouth shut. Well, obviously you weren't delivering flowers. So, you're our adopted youngest sibling. And on top of that, you're pretty. I've never seen anyone as pretty as me before. Hearing this, she think, What the hell is with this narcissist? Ishul pulled his cheek and said, Interesting. You got kidnapped, but you're not even crying. Are you stupid or something? She think, This bastard. Kidnapper shouted loudly, Just kill them both. Ishul used magic and said, So annoying. Suddenly, everything started floating in the air. Then he speaks, I was going to wait until the baby cried for help. But since you decided to hasten your deaths, there's no helping it. Goodbye. Then he killed them. Blood was everywhere in the air. He stepped forward and says, Still not crying. Then he asked, When are you going to cry, little sibling? Hearing this, she think, Seriously, this house is full of lunatics. Meanwhile, Basillian was busy working in his office when there was a knock at the door. He said, Come in. Ishul asked, Brother, have you ever seen anything this cute, brother? Basillian replied, So, here's the thing. Ishul smiled and added, I want this one. Basillian asked, So you actually went through with it? Why bother with something so useless? Hearing this, she began to think, What? He knew I was kidnapped? I never expected to be treated like family, but that's cold. At that moment, Ishul speaks, Wouldn't it be nice to have something this adorable in our house? Besides, they're fearless, perfect for a Basillian. Right. Then she think again. Do you have a death wish? Basillian said. This isn't just a simple matter of taking in an adopted daughter. Ishul added. I know, but doesn't it sound fun? Basillian asked. Are you planning to join the Count's madness too? Ishul smiled and replied. Well, I'm not sure about that, but having a little sister like this doesn't seem so bad. Hearing all this, she think again. Who gave you the right to decide? Basillian speaks. You're just as crazy. You over there. I'll help you escape. Just leave this castle. She think, what? Then she said, but I like it here. Then she think again. What's she saying? I haven't even started. Why would I leave? Basillian asked. You like it here? Why? Then she think, I've never really thought about it. She smiled and replied, well, because I like father. Then she think again. Well, it's not hard to come up with a reason. Hearing this, Basillian asked, what? She doesn't seem brainwashed, Ishua replied. Right, saying she likes father. She might be pretty, but is she mentally all there? Then she lost in thought. Just let it go. More importantly, do you guys even know what your father is up to? At that moment, Basillian asked, do you even understand what might happen to you in this place when you say things like that? Ishua, you know it too. The Count's plan. Ishua replied. Yes. That disgusting act trying to bring the dead back to life. Hearing all this, she lost in thought. What? Bringing people back to life? Life and death are within the domain of the gods. Defying death means standing against the gods themselves, and because it requires an enormous price, even among wicked necromancers, resurrection magic is considered taboo. A necromancer of the Count's level should know that. What is he thinking? After a while, Ishul smiled and speaks. But brother, I have no intention of sacrificing the baby as an offering. She think. Wait, was I supposed to be the sacrifice? Unbelievable. Basillian added. Yeah, I don't want to be part of that disgusting planite. Suddenly, Count Kieran came and said, that hurts my feelings. My dear, beloved children, what were you all talking about without your dear father? My lovely children, except for Dad. Then he asked, were you talking about something secret? I wish you would share it with Dad too. She lost in thought. So Jiren was planning a resurrection spell? Could it be, because of that incident? About 15 years ago, Count Basillian was said to have fallen in love with a woman he met by chance in the Black Forest. No one knew why she was there or what her status was, but the Count adored her deeply. So much so that he even went to the Emperor himself to have her granted noble status so they could marry. They had such a loving relationship that they even had 3 sons. It seemed like their happiness would continue forever, but one day, the Countess suddenly passed away. The exact cause of death was never made public. However, after her death, the Count, who was already rarely seen in public, completely shut himself away in his estate. That is, until the day he came out to adopt a child. So, the sacrifice needed to revive the Countess is me. The fact that the Count was deeply devoted to his wife was well known, and I should have expected this the moment I found out he was a dark magician. But if it was just for a sacrifice, why was he so particular about everything? A few moments later, Basillian pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and offered it to him, saying, the miasma of the Black Forest has affected his mind. Please come inside quickly. Kieran accepted the handkerchief and, while wiping away the blood, smiled and said, it looks like my sons have already grown close to their new sister. That makes Dad very happy. Were you surprised by your father's strange state? I miss Cheshire so much that I came straight here as soon as I returned from the Black Forest. When the Kieran walked over to her, she began to think, the smell of blood. And he doesn't seem entirely sane either. Suddenly, Kieran lifted her up and said, Cheshire is my daughter. How could I possibly use my own Cheshire as a sacrifice? That's absurd. You don't need to listen to your brother's nonsense. There's only one thing I want from you, Cheshire. Hearing this, Cheshire asked, what's that? Then she began to think again. What do you want? Is this the real reason finally being revealed? Kieran replied, to Dad, bring me the Queen of the Fairies' crown. Let's go to the Holy Empire together. Cheshire, the Queen of the Fairies' crown. This item, which the Fairy Queen supposedly offered to the Holy King while praising the gods, is a sacred relic of the Holy Empire, Haldered. Little is known regarding its use or abilities. It is known that only children under 5 years old, the Holy King of the Empire, and the fairies can touch the crown. However, due to the fact that this was made by the heretical beings known as fairies, the Queen of the Fairies' crown sparked heated debates over whether it was truly worthy of being kept as a scared relic. After years of dispute, it was only recently decided to remove from the list of sacred relics, and it was decreed that a prayer meeting would be held to bestow the crown upon the Clid who proves the highest devotion. A prayer meeting would instead be held to bestow the crown upon the child who proves the highest devotion. That is the small saint prayer meeting. That will be held in a few months. The Count was looking for a child to participate in that meeting. The Queen of the Fairies' crown. I had heard rumors about its existence in the underworld, but the army never coveted it. What does Kieran want to use it for? Then she recalled what Kieran had said. You don't need to worry. I will make sure that Chesha comes in first place, because that's what Dad will make happen. It seems like he would do anything to get it. But, no, I don't want to be part of the prayer meeting, even if it kills me. Moreover, the Holy Empire has not only holy knights but also heretical inquisitors stationed there. If I happen to encounter that man there, there's a high chance I'll die. Being a resident of the underworld and a fairy treated as heretical, the Holy Empire and I are incompatible. Kieran is a dark wizard just like me, so what's with all the talk about the Holy Empire? Then she shouted loudly. This is definitely my chance to escape. It would be better to threaten people like before. Now that I know the Count's objective, there's no reason to stay here anymore. If the reason I was adopted is the prayer meeting, then it has nothing to do with the fairy experiment, right? It's a bit disturbing that the object is something related to fairies, but my life comes first. I need to get out of here before something else happens. I've prepared the transparency flower for this moment. Farewell, Basillian! As soon as she ran away, the flower petals were left behind on the ground. Someone was passing by from above and caught the fragrance of the flowers. Then he noticed a single petal lying on the ground. He picked it up and said, Are those petals inside the mansion? He was Basillian's second son, Count Basillian. Seeing his, she think, damn, of all times, before I get caught, quickly hide. Why does that little brat have such good instincts? I even almost missed the flower in the middle. That was really close. I need to get out of here quickly. When did he chase me all the way here? Then she suddenly appeared in front of him and said, Ah, sorry. Karha asked, What, you're my little sister? That's strange. I followed the trail of petals, but why? Anyway, that's not important. Why are you out at this late hour? Chesha replied. I was just out for a walk. Then Karha asked, Is this flower yours? I found it on my way here. Chesha replied. Ah, no. Karha speaks. I feel like I smell something similar. Then stay still for a moment. Cheshire said. What? Then she lost in thought. Wait, what are you doing? No way. Is it really happening? Like this, in such a ridiculous way? Then suddenly, the bells started ringing. Karha says, Looks like an uninvited guest has arrived. I should start by checking the city gates. You take the flower. Meanwhile, a man shouted loudly from the other side. How dare you act so arrogantly? A noble who serves the emperor like this? Kieran asked. Why didn't you come during the day? Count Rudin? Please deliver the imperial decree. Count Rudin replied. Count Basillian, as soon as you receive this letter, you must enter the imperial palace. This is the emperor's command, and failure to comply will be considered treason. Furthermore, you, the newly adopted child of the family, and Chesha Basillian will both be entering the palace. Hearing all this, Cheshire began to think, Me? This feels strangely unsettling. Count Rudin speaks. The newly adopted child of your family, Chesha Basillian, will also accompany you to the palace. Hearing this, Cheshire began to think again. What? What kind of royal decree is this? Summoning us to the capital in the dead of night. And they're dragging me along too. Then Count Rudin shouted loudly. Then, let's not waste any time and depart at once. Kieran speaks. Sigh. How inconsiderate to call for us at such an ungodly hour. I was already heartbroken over someone's disappearance, and now this. Then he smiled and asked, Right, Cheshire? Cheshire began to think. You noticed I was gone? Kieran said. I was surprised when you weren't in your room. I thought someone had taken you, and I was about to release the hounds to search for you. Cheshire think again. Why are you so obsessed with me like this? At that moment Kieran asked, were you out for a walk with your brother? Cheshire replied. Yes. Then Karha said, You're really making me feel embarrassed, just like how you used to act with Mother. Is it because the baby takes after Mother? Hearing this, she began to think, Mother? So all this time, when you said I resemble someone, were you talking about the late Countess? Even if that's the case, is it really worth making such a fuss over? Even if I resemble her, it's probably just the hair color or something trivial like that. The beauty of a fairy is crafted from fantasy. It's practically impossible for a human to match it. After a while, Kieran turned back and says, "Now that we've found Cheshire, everyone should prepare to leave. We're heading to the royal palace." The next day, noon. At the royal palace, Kieran said. The royal palace is as grand as ever. She lost in thought. How do I keep getting caught up in these strange situations every time? With this, escaping the Count's household is out of the question for now. Count Rudin came and speaks. "So, when can we have an audience with His Majesty?" "Just wait quietly. Before meeting His Majesty, there's someone you must meet first." Then he added, "Ah, it seems he has arrived. Now, greet him properly." As soon as Hylon arrived, Rudin says, "This is Sir Hylon, a knight of the Holy Empire of Hildred." Seeing him, Cheshire was lost in thought. "Hylon? What are you doing here?" "The head of the Inquisitors, Hylon. The Inquisitors of the Holy Empire of Hildred are an elite group consisting of only 13 individuals who hold such authority. They possess the power of immediate execution, and even the right to grant absolution, making them an immensely powerful. They are the highest-ranking clergy, beneath only the Holy King and the cardinals, and they operating in secrecy across the continent to maintain order. Among them, Hylon is the only one capable of wielding the holy relic known as the Chains of Condemnation, earning him reverence in Hildred as a symbol of divine proof. Before I became a child, I was relentlessly pursued by that very Hylon. The identity of an Inquisitor is classified information. I knew they often disguised themselves as Holy Knights, but I never expected to encounter one here. There's no way he'd recognize me now that I'd become a child. Right. When Hylon stepped forward and reached out his hand toward Cheshire, she began to think, "What? Why is he suddenly coming toward me? Don't come any closer, you lunatic." Then suddenly Kieran grabbed her hand and said, "Such a noble holy knight." Then he asked, "What business do you have with my daughter?" Hylon replied, "My apologies. She resembles someone I know." Kieran speaks, "A mere 5-year-old child? I'm quite curious who that might be." Hearing this, Count Rudin shouted loudly, "Watch your words, Count Basillian. He is a member of the First Order of the Holy Knights." At that moment Kieran said, "Well then, let's introduce ourselves properly. I am Kieran Basillian," Hylon says. "I am Hylon." Kieran speaks, "But what brings a holy knight to the royal palace? I thought you'd be spending precious time with His Majesty." Then Hylon added, "It was I who requested His Majesty summon you here, Count, to verify the identity of the child attending the sacred prayer meeting. Therefore, I would appreciate it if you could step aside for a moment." Kieran asked, "Identity verification? Does the Holy Empire conduct identity verification so abruptly like this?" Hylon replied, "It was unavoidable to prevent any external interference, especially since the gift for this prayer meeting was once a holy relic. You, Count, should understand the need for extra caution. Please cooperate." Kieran added, "If you insist so threateningly, I have no choice but to comply. But what happened earlier must not happen again." Then he stepped forward and said, "Cheshire, if anything happens, call for your father right away. Even if it's just because you miss me, that's fine too." She smiled and said, "Okay." Then she began to think, "No, don't go. I don't want to be left alone with Hylon." Kieran kissed her head and said, "And remember what I told you. You only need to fulfill one thing. To do that, Cheshire, you mustn't make any mistakes today. Then I'll be back soon, okay?" The Count leaves. She think, "In the end, we're left alone. What does he plan to check first? What if he recognizes me? What should I say? Oh no, he's coming." After a while Hylon speaks, "No matter how I look at it, you resemble her. Without my knowledge, she might have had a man. Perhaps." Hearing this, she think, "Huh, what on earth is he talking about?" Then he asked, "Are you Lichesia's daughter?" Hearing this, she shocked and began to think, What nonsense is this? Hylon and my fateful destiny have been intertwined for a long time. The first encounter happened at a time when our destinies were changing drastically. I was exhausted from a life on the run, and Hylon was a knight apprentice of the Holy Empire with a promising future. I made a request to him. Kill me! Of course, he did not accept my request. After our brief encounter, time passed, and we each went our own way. Then she recalled what he had said. Don't die without permission. Now, we find ourselves in an uncomfortable relationship of pursuer and pursued. Each of us believed we had to die at the hands of the other, leaving between us a complex relationship difficult to describe with words. And now you say you met a man? Do you really think someone who knows my situation better than anyone would believe I had time for romance? After a while, he said, It seems it's still too soon to answer that question. Then let's start with the name, she says. Cheshire, he asked. Cheshire. Were you forced to attend the congregation? Then she asked. Forced, what? He replied. There is no such thing. I'm asking if you were forced to attend the congregation. If so, I can help you, she said. I don't need help, he added. I see. What a relief. Then I'll ask again. Did your biological mother, by any chance, have bright blonde hair and red eyes? Or did she mention seeing butterflies or flowers? Anything you remember about her, tell me. Hearing this, she says, I don't know. Then she began to think. What? Are we talking about me again? Just ask about the congregation and end this already. What? What are you doing? Are you crazy? Why are you suddenly taking off your clothes? Then suddenly, Hylon put his hand on his coat and tried to show his chest, and she shouted and began to think. Are you seriously insane? She asked. Could it be? He asked. Have you seen this symbol before? Seeing this, she think again. Was it because of that? I was the one who marked it. Suddenly, Kieran came and asked, This? Do you have a death wish, Sir Hylon? What kind of pathetic display is this for a sacred night in front of a 5-year-old girl? Hylon replied. I just wanted to ask something, Kieran said. And for that, you undressed almost completely? That symbol is the heretic's mark. Why don't you erase it? If you were truly a sacred knight, the normal thing would be to tear off your own skin to get rid of that heretical emblem. Then Hylon asked, Do you know Lichesia? Kieran smiled and replied, Don't tell me. Did you just put on that ridiculous scene, just to ask about the whereabouts of the heretic? Then he lifted the candle handle and placed it against his neck, saying, Cheshire has no relation to the heretic, so don't test my patience any further, and I hope we never see each other again. Seeing this, she think, This just got serious. Won't they end up fighting for real? Hylon speaks. Every child attending the prayer of the lesser saints will be assigned a guardian knight. I have been assigned as the escort for the house of Count Basillian. Kieran smiled and added, Do it. I will make sure to escort her safely to the Holy Empire. Then Hylon asked, Escort? Isn't that a threat? Kieran replied, Consider it however you like. Hylon added, But you'd better be careful with your behavior, Count. There are quite a few watching, Kieran said. Then we will meet again on the day we depart for the Holy Empire. Seeing this, she started thinking, Thanks to Kieran's intervention, this ended quickly. But it's not just that Kieran knows me. He also knows about my mark. Then she said, Father! Me! Hug me! She think again. Either way, it seems escaping isn't an option for now. Better to play along and gauge the situation. At that moment she asked, Father, but where did you go? He replied, I went to present myself before His Majesty the Emperor. Just a moment ago, the Emperor of the great Empire of Palin said, You've made a great effort to come, Count Basillian. I apologize for calling you so suddenly. Have you already greeted the Sacred Knight of Hildred? Kieran asked. Sacred Knight? Emperor asked. Count, is there a problem? Kieran replied. Speaks clearly. Then suddenly, Kieran grabbed the Emperor by the collar and added, That bastard is a heretic inquisitor. With what intention did you hand my daughter over to an inquisitor? After a while he speaks. It's been a while, so we exchanged greetings, but I came back quickly, thinking Cheshire might be waiting for me. She asked, Then do I have to see His Majesty as well? He replied, That won't be necessary. Why would Cheshire have to meet that red pig? Then he smiled and asked, Since we're here, do you want to finish touring the palace with me? She began to think, I feel like I just heard something unbelievable. A short while later, they went to the garden. He speaks. If you see something you like, tell me. I'll have it made the same way for you in the castle. She says, Yes. Then he asked, But, Cheshire, what did you talk about with the knight? Hearing this, she smiled and replied, I asked him if he had a puppy, so I told him he didn't. I did well. Then she think, Well, there's nothing good about telling the truth. He asked, Yes, you did well. Did the knight say anything strange? Hearing this, she think, He still seems worried about what happened earlier. I suppose he fears that, because of Hylon, I might refuse to attend the prayer, or that I might have a bad impression of the Count's house. Should I take this opportunity to get closer? Then she said, Father, Chesha is on your side. So don't worry. He speaks. Things like this. You didn't have to resemble her so much. A few days later. The Basillian family's townhouse, with still more than 3 months left, until the small saints' prayer meeting, we decided to stay in the capital for the time being. She lost in thought. Everything felt peaceful. Since returning from the palace, Kieran had been away frequently. It's probably because of what happened in the garden. Then she recalled what Kieran had said. There's no need for him to resemble that person too. It's the first time I've ever seen Kieran like that. I'm also curious about what kind of person the Countess is to make him act this way. And since Kieran knows far too much about me, I've decided to delay my escape for now and investigate him further. But leaving the county for a while won't be easy. Is there anything I can investigate from here? Suddenly Ishul came over and said, "Hello, little sibling?" Then Karha came over and asked, "How was the palace?" Ishul asked, "Did you manage to participate in the prayer meeting safely?" She replied, "Yes." Then she began to think, seriously, this damn household is no help at all. With Kieran gone, now it's the twins? Please, just leave me alone. Then both of them asked, "Has the baby eaten? If you're bored, we can play with you." From the window, Basillian watched them talking. As he observed the scene, he fell into thought. So, in the end, that child ended up attending the prayer meeting. Then he said, "What should I do now?" He began to think again. Mother, our once peaceful family, crumbled along with Mother's sudden illness. Then, he remembered what his mother had once told him. "Basillian, Mom has one request for you. Kieran, Daddy will be very sad. You must protect Basillian and your siblings, no matter what." Back then I had replied, "Yes, Mother. I will protect them at all costs." Mother said, "I'm sorry, my dear. You're still so young and yet, I'm placing such a heavy burden on your shoulders." With those final words, Mother left our side forever. Mother's death changed many things. Then, another memory suddenly surfaced in his mind. He remembered Ishul came to him and saying, "Brother, I can't find Mother. I've been looking for her since yesterday, but she's nowhere to be seen." Karha says he can't find Mother's scent either. He also can't find the scent of the sibling who was in Mother's belly. The younger siblings, too young to understand death, searched endlessly for Mother's whereabouts. Ishul says, "Brother, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. More than anything, Father's condition was far worse than Mother's words had warned. He abandoned not only Basillian's affairs, but even us. He remained beside Mother, even in death." At that moment, I went to Father and said, "Please snap out of it, Father. How long are you going to stay here like this? Mother wouldn't have wanted to see you like this. She wouldn't have wished for this. Please snap out of it and go inside." Then Father says, This isn't right." I shouted loudly, "You, Count Basillian, as the serpent ruling the Black Forest, you have responsibilities and duties." A while later, Father looked up at the sky and suddenly burst into laughter. Father stood up and said, "Basillian." Right. The day Father reminded himself that he was Basillian. Then he says, "I am Count Basillian. So, isn't it possible to bring back someone who's dead?" That day marked his fall and the beginning of his madness. After my mother's death, the Count completely lost his sanity. I stood by him, watching how someone who appeared perfectly fine on the outside was falling apart inside, watching how he ultimately resorted to touching the forbidden. Then he recalled that Father said, "Basillian, I've finally found a way to bring Mom back to life." I watched the entire process unfold. I need to stay focused. Using the holy relic, the crown from the sacred empire, as a sacrifice. The moment his plan to use dark magic was discovered, the downfall of the Basillian family would become inevitable. Even innocent children would be executed for allegedly cooperating. Such a thing is something Mother would never have wished for. But I can't think of any way to stop the Count. With the twins already going along with this madness, even the newly adopted sibling seems to be adapting better than expected. If the sibling Mother had been carrying had been born, they would have looked just like this. At that moment, he recalled that Chesha says, "It's impressive here, right? Dad made it this way. What on earth could be so great about this? I find everything just repulsive." Suddenly, Kieran came and asked, "What are you staring at like that, Basillian? Have you started to care for your little sibling a little bit now?" Basillian replied, "Don't sneak around like a thief. Make some noise, why don't you, Lord Count? You've dragged such a young child into this. All because of your disgusting greed. Kieran added. Well, won't you call it pure love instead? Basillian asked. What will you do from now on? Kieran said. What? Basillian speaks. You've announced your intention to attend the Sosenjin prayer meeting. From now on, attention will be focused on Basillian. Then Basillian, which has been hiding in the shadows, will surface. So it would be wise to start expanding our influence outward from now on. Kieran stepped forward and says, I'll think about it. Hearing this, Basillian began to think. It's hopeless. He's not even listening to me in the first place. That gaze is surely not directed toward Basillian's future. It's directed only toward the dead past. Meanwhile, Karha said, Hey, look here. Ishul asked, Should I hug you? She said. How annoying. Basillian lost in thought. But I cannot lose the future by clinging to the past, especially because of the promise I made to Mother. Then he speaks, My lord, I will protect this family. Then he lost in thought. Just as you are willing to break taboos by any means, I, too, will do whatever it takes. I will stop you. No matter what. After a while, Karha said, Baby, try this. Ishul speaks. No, eat this first. A few more weeks had passed since arriving at the capital townhouse. Karha says, Try the cookie first. Ishul said. The cake will taste better. Chesha began to think. By now, I had gotten used to the twins' attention. They had been the youngest until now, so they must be excited to finally become older brothers. They see me as an interesting presence. Well, I figured they might be useful someday, so I was working on building a good relationship with them for now. But when am I supposed to start my investigation? The maids were laughing at seeing them like this. A maid said, Now that the young lady is here, the whole house feels brighter. How adorable. Suddenly, a servant came and says, Young lady, young masters, young Master Basillian has ordered me to escort you. Ishul asked, Huh? Why? He replied, Count and Countess Rudin have come to visit. They all went to him. Seeing them, the Countess said, What an adorable young master and young lady. Then Cheshire saw him and began to think, That person. Isn't that the noble who came last time to deliver the imperial decree? What brings them here this time? After a while, Countess smiled and said, Nice to meet you. I am Countess Rudin. We have been given an imperial decree to educate you all in proper etiquette, which is why we are here today. At that moment, Rudin speaks. His Majesty wished to personally welcome the new child of the Count's family, and has sent us as a gesture of that welcome. Consider it an honor. This is the kind of education that should have been received at the Count's estate in the first place. Hearing this, Cheshire began to think. The last time I saw them, the Emperor and Kieran didn't seem to be on good terms. So as expected, this is about surveillance, isn't it? Basillian's expression says as much. Then Countess speaks. Now then, shall we begin with Lady Cheshire? There's much to cover, so we must be diligent with our lessons from now on. The Count's daughter can't behave as she did at the orphanage. Hearing this, Cheshire began to think again. Starting off with such a petty insult, it's not even worth responding to. Hearing this, Karha drew his sword, placed it at the Countess's throat, and said, Watch your mouth. There are ears listening, you know. Ishul speaks. Hearing things like that puts us in a difficult position. It really makes us think whether or not we should kill you. Hearing all this, Basillian was shocked and shouted loudly, Karha! Ishul! Then Basillian said, I apologize. They are still young and immature. Please be generous and forgive their rudeness. Seeing all this, Rudin got angry and shouted loudly, You! Both father and son, utterly devoid of manners. Is this the so-called lineage of House Basillian? Leaving a mere child as their representative. Where on earth is Count Basillian? Basillian said. Count Basillian is. Rudin speaks. Now I see what kind of place the serpent's house truly is. This is why those raised without a mother are so obvious in their behavior. I will not let this matter slide. Make sure to deliver my words firmly to the Count. Then they left. At that moment, Ishul shouted loudly, Brother, allow me to deal with that bastard right now. Basillian said. Enough. Please, just stop. At that moment, Cheshire says, Our brother was insulted. This is humiliating. Then she think, Wow, the atmosphere is completely ruined. Ishul speaks. She was the one who picked a fight with the baby first. Should I just kill her? But if brother finds out, he'll be furious. Hearing this, she began to think, of all times, this had to happen when Kieran isn't around. With this incident, House Basillian has given the Emperor an excuse against them. That's a problem, but more than that. This is why those raised without a mother are so obvious. There's no way it wouldn't hurt after hearing something like that. Then she recalled that, someone said, those without parents always stand out. What would an orphan know? Get lost. I know that feeling of despair better than anyone. Suddenly, at that moment, she says, please let Chesha down. Then she began to think again. I need to go see Basillian, since I'm already infiltrating. There's no harm in being nice, right? She ran after Basillian, and when he opened the door, she saw him sitting in a corner, crying. Then she stepped forward and said, I'll just stay here for a moment. After a while, she think, I feel like I should comfort him, but, honestly, I'm not sure what to do. I guess I'll just stay by your side, like I did for Hatta. Then suddenly he said, Karha and Ishwal stepped in because you carry the name of Basillian. It's not for your sake, and I'm the one who doesn't want you to become a Basillian. Trying to flatter me won't do you any good. Hearing all this, she speaks. What's flattery? Here, take this. Seeing this, he said, what? She speaks. It's because smelling the flowers makes me feel better. Here, Basillian. Seeing this, he recalled that mother said, smelling the flowers will make you feel a bit better. At that moment, he says, now stop it. Then he said, wiping away his tears, I just want to keep the promise I made to my mother. But the Count and my siblings are doing whatever they want. But I have to protect the family. Only Basillian can remember my mother. I want to protect what's precious to me. So I won't let you become a Basillian. If you join in the Count's insane plan, the family will surely fall apart. And I don't want an innocent child to be used either. I know you're still too young to understand what this means. Hearing all this, she think, crying and acting all mature. He's just a little kid. Then he speaks. So don't get too attached. I'll make sure to send you away as soon as possible. Now stop doing unnecessary things and go. She says, yes, he said. Thank you for the flowers. Began to think, it's not enough that they insulted me. I can't have you acting like you did at the orphanage. Leaving a child as a representative, touching someone so much younger than themselves. Meanwhile, Chesha began to think, this is such an oddly irritating situation, isn't it? It's been a while, but I think it's time to teach that brat a proper lesson. That night, Count Rudin's estate. Rudin was sitting in his room, laughing, and then he said, that feels so refreshing. To think that Basillian couldn't even move in front of me. Then he began to think, just receiving the imperial decree alone guarantees me a new title and territory. And on top of that, I can make Count Basillian apologize. At that moment, he said, just thinking about it makes me feel full. He suddenly lost consciousness. Chesha was silently watching this and thinking, there you are, Count Ludin. Did you think you could have fun using us? I'll return it all to you now. Suddenly, a huge teddy bear fell on top of him. He said, who's there? When he opened his eyes, he was shocked and asked, what is? Lichesia appeared and said, hello? Welcome to my illusory realm. Seeing her, Rudin was shocked and shouted, you, the witch, Lichesia? Then he ran away in fear and started thinking, what the hell is going on? Wasn't she supposed to have disappeared? No, more importantly, why did she come for me? Seeing him scared like that, Lichesia began to think, how pathetic, Count. Playing with you in the illusory realm is really the most fun. Besides, in here, I can return to my original form. But I can't leave my place empty for too long. So as much as I'd love to keep playing, I should wrap this up. She snapped her fingers, and stones rose up around him. Then she speaks. Oh my, you got caught already? How boring, he said. Please spare me. I have a wife and rabbit-like children to take care of, she says. Oh really? That's funny. I also have a snake-like brother and a father. Then a rope wrapped around his neck. He shouted loudly, please spare my life. What reason do you have for doing this? She asked. A reason, huh? What do you think when you kill an annoying bug, Count? He replied. Absolutely nothing, she said. Exactly. I don't need a grand reason to kill you, do I? Now then, where should I start? He says. Kids without mothers, she added, always have such sharp tongues. Just as she was about to kill him, he felt something and began to think. A power surge is coming from outside the illusory realm. Oh no, I haven't killed him yet. I need to hide first. She hid. As soon as the door opened, Kieran came inside. Then she began to think. Did the morning incident reach Kieran's ears already? Even so, He still rushed over because he's my father? Seeing him, Rudin said, Please, my life. Then Kieran snapped his fingers, and he woke up and said, Huh! Count Basillian, was this your doing? Using illusions to play tricks in the middle of the night. Such arrogance. Kieran asked. What nonsense are you spouting? Did you wake up from a nightmare? Then he said, I only came here as you wished, to apologize. Rudin shouted loudly. This is black magic? Where did you get such wicked power? The divine shall punish you. Then Rudin suddenly fell down and bowed at Kieran's feet. Kieran placed his foot on his head and said, You sure have a lot to talk about. Rudin says, Hold on, this is a misunderstanding. Kieran added, What part of this is a misunderstanding? While I was away, you used the imperial decree to barge into my home? Rudin says, That, Kieran speaks. You insulted my child for being from an orphanage, and mocked them for being motherless? Or was it that you ordered Count Basillian to personally come and apologize? Rudin said, Please spare my life. I won't tell anyone if you let me go. Then Kieran says, I just don't feel like sparing you. Instead, I'll end this quickly. My little daughter is waiting for me at home. I'll finish this quickly for you. My young daughter is waiting for me at home. There's no need to be so nervous. So Kieran used magic, and Count Rudin ended up willingly preparing to hang himself? Then Kieran said, Smile, won't you, Count? Then Rudin hang himself. Seeing this, she began to think, Kieran, this one is even crazier than I thought. I thought it would just be a warning at best, but I didn't think he'd go as far as killing. The problem is, the events that took place at the Basillian estate today will undoubtedly be reported to the Emperor by Count Rudin. If Rudin is found dead the very next day, Basillian will inevitably be suspected. I planned to conclude it as merely being caught up in the whims of that witch, but suddenly intervening has only complicated matters. What on earth is he trying to do? After a while, Kieran said, Oh dear, I must return quickly. Chesha will be waiting. Hearing this, she was shocked and began to think, This isn't the time for this. I need to return quickly too. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps us grow.